11 rings in the 13 years. Beyond any stat gathered in the history of the game, none can compare to it. Wilt has the most points in a single game, and Kareem amassed more points over a career, and Shaq's dominance transcends any stat. But Bill Russell nearly has as many rings as them combined. You'd think that'd make him the GOAT without question, but that is not the case. People bring up how different the league was back then. I mean, there were only 14 teams in the league in Russell's last year, and many were added during his career. People often joke about how Bill Russell played against milkmen. His rings don't count the same. Well, let's look at it. Today we're going to look at Bill Russell the player and hear from some NBA legends about how he'd do in today's game. First, we're going to look at his size, which certainly would fit into today's NBA. He'd be listed at 6 feet 10 inches and had an impressive 7 foot 4 inch wingspan. To put that into perspective, he's about the same height as Anthony Davis, with a wingspan longer than the Greek Freaks. The only knock against Russell's measurables would be his build, weighing only 220 pounds. Now that didn't seem to hold him back too much, considering he was the best defender against Wilt Chamberlain, who outweighed him by about 55 pounds. But his thin frame and length make him perfect for the modern NBA, because it allowed his greatest physical strength. He arguably had the greatest agility of any center in the history of the league. His rim protection was second to none, but it was his ability to slide from his man to cut off the ball handler driving to the basket. He was considered the first intimidating defender the league ever saw. It was to the point that opponents would pass out of open layups because they were paranoid that Bill was hiding in their blind spot, just waiting to block their shot. Here's what the Hall of Fame small forward Chet Walker had to say on the matter.
Part of that reputation is based on psychic. As a player, when you challenge him, you think about the reputation and you have to automatically change your shot.
His agility wasn't just limited to his rim protection. He'd frequently take ball handlers out to 25 feet, even when there wasn't the threat of a three-point shot, since it didn't even exist yet, and force players into bad shots or to just give up the ball. And this wasn't just your average starting guards that he'd do this to. He would do this to all-time greats like Oscar Robertson and Jerry West. He'd fit in perfectly as a switchable big who could both protect the rim as well as switch onto small guards. For his era, he had a somewhat LeBron-like athletic advantage on the court in terms of chasing down smaller players on the fast break to block their shot. Also, like LeBron, he did this to win one of his championship rings. His teammates and fellow Hall of Famers Bob Cousy and Tom Hyson recall the play.
St. Louis got the ball at the foul line, made one pass up towards the sideline, the other foul line extended. Jack Coleman, who received the pass, took one dribble, was going out for a layup to win the game, the championship, and everything else.
Russ ran the 90 feet. He must have done it in 4 or 5 giant strides.
And Russell blocked the shot. He went by me. I was trying to get to this guy Coleman. He went by me like the Roadrunner. I mean, phew.
He just swooped, literally like Superman.
It wasn't just that Bill Russell had quick feet and had chase down speed. His stamina was second to none. You have to understand the pace the game was played at in this era. During his era, the league reached a still record pace of 127 average possessions a game. For context, the current pace is 98.2 and is considered an explicit focus for offenses today. Russell had to run the length of the court more times than the modern center, and he often had to do so at a speed that the modern center wouldn't have to. He'd be sprinting up and down the court nearly the entire game. His only breaks would come if the opponent's offense was much a slower pace in which he'd get somewhat of a breather. And this wasn't just a thing of the times either. Bill Russell, alongside other Celtic legend Bob Cousy, literally invented the fast break. At the time, people just referred to it as the Celtic offense, and oftentimes Bill Russell was the ball handler leading that offense. Yes, that is right. Russell was a point center nearly 70 years before Nikola Jokic. But much unlike Jokic, Russell's stamina added a versatility to his game that put pressure on opponents at all times. He could lead the break, he could start the break with a block or a rebound that was quickly dished out to Cousy or Sam Jones, or he could outrun the opponent's big for the easy dunk before his team even needs to cross half court. But these are just his physical. What solidified Bill Russell's legacy was his intangibles. But before we get into that, we'd like to remind you that you can win a free piece of merch from our partner, Ultra Game. All you have to do is subscribe to this channel and the Ultra Game channel, like this video, and drop a comment with the name of your favorite team or player. Now, long before Jordan or Kobe, Russell had a near obsession with winning, according to Tom Heinsohn. He said,
He used to become physically ill before every ball game. If we heard that he wasn't ill that particular night, Red Auerbach would stand up and say, Russ, go into the men's room and throw up, because that was the key that Russell emotionally was into the ball game, and that's how much he gave of himself to win.
His obsession ended up leading to one of his greatest criticisms. Outside of his rebounding, none of his stats are all that remarkable, even if they were recorded today. For his career, he averaged 15.1 points, 22.5 rebounds, and 4.3 assists. Steals and blocks weren't recorded during his career, though. Many officials during that time said that Russell would have averaged roughly 7 blocks a game and 3 to 4 steals. But his lack of production on the stat sheet really did him a disservice as far as his legacy is concerned. He intentionally limited his game to his greatest strengths because he knew no one else on the team could do it better. He didn't score because he had the likes of Sam Jones and John Havlicek on his team who could shoot better. He didn't handle the ball at the top of the key because Kusi and Casey Jones could do it better. He always played within a team concept, and that meant maximizing his team's strengths and minimizing their weaknesses. That was the reason he was even drafted to the Celtics in the first place. Their offense was already considered the best in the league, but they were infamously poor defenders and rebounders. That is why they traded a 6-time All-Star center in Ed McCauley and rookie Cliff Hagan to the St. Louis Hawks in order to get him. Now, a trade that, to be fair, won the Hawks a championship. But needless to say, the trade won the Celtics a dynasty. With his abilities on defense and rebounding, all the rest of the team had to do was what they did best. His teammates played hyper-aggressive defense because they knew if their man beat them, Russell would be waiting to clean up the mess. It made defense really simple to play. You either just funnel the ball handler to the big guy, or you try to steal the ball away first. In today's NBA, self-sacrifice has only grown more important. There are only so many shots to be had, and if you have 3 superstar talents on the same roster, someone is going to go without. Having a superstar on your team who willingly does the dirty work and whose focus on the offensive end is to facilitate the offense without it being designed with him scoring mind. Think of a Draymond Green in the body of an Anthony Davis, but with the leadership of a Steph Curry. An egoless player whose greatness speaks for itself and shines through, regardless of the system he's in. It was this win-first mindset that could be seen in more modern teams in sports history. The Tom Brady and Bill Belichick Patriots had a simple mantra: do your job. Sure, Tom Brady had the capability to wow viewers with long-distance passes that looked great on a highlight reel. But instead, he simply took what the defense gave him and steadily marched down the field to his 6 rings with the team who also so happens to reside in Boston. Bill Russell just distilled his game down to what it absolutely needed to be in order to win. And while some of his greatness has faded in time, those who were held from ever winning a ring remember what he represented. Elgin Baylor, the man who saved the Lakers franchise and lost to Russell's Celtics in the finals a total of 7 times, he said,
Russell, they'll just look at stats and see the guy there with 12, 13 points a game.
Sure.
But look at the intangible things. Hey, he's going to save you.
aside from his stellar defense and his unmatched drive to win, the man had an offensive mind that eventually surpassed legendary coach Red Auerbach. After winning yet another championship in 1966, Bill Russell became the head coach of the Boston Celtics. This made him the first African-American coach in the league's history. One of the many strides he made in sports to push for was racial equality in American sports. A whole other video could be dedicated to the work that Bill Russell has put in towards social justice and its importance in the world of sports. It cannot be overstated. Bill Russell's career was so long ago, it's hard to contextualize it in today's world. When he was drafted, it was a struggle to even be allowed into the same hotel as his white teammates. Players were lucky if they got to fly coach to games. Sometimes they had to take trains or even buses. And given the achievements that Bill Russell amassed and the conditions in which he amassed them, there's no doubt he'd have a collection of rings in today's era. But maybe not 11. We'll leave the last word to a room full of vets, including NBA legends Shaq, Isaiah Thomas, and Reggie Miller, voting on who's the greatest center of the 60s, Wilt or Bill. Remember, Wilt Chamberlain put up 100 points a game with no three-point line. The man averaged 50 points and 25 rebounds for an entire season. The man who averaged more minutes a game than there were in regulation at 48.5 minutes. And here is their vote.
Well, who's your center? Is it Wilt or is it Bill?
I got to go Big Bill.
Yeah. Give me Bill here.
I'll go Bill.
1, 2, 3.
And that is it for our video today. What do you think? Do you think that Bill Russell would dominate in today's NBA? Or even if he did, do you think he'd get recognized for it given his focus on defense and rebounding? Let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you'd like more videos like this uploaded daily. We will see you next time.